Hello, everybody. Welcome to the State of Church Tech webinar 2024 edition. My name's Christian with Pushpay, and I'm excited to dive into this webinar talking about our third annual State of Church Tech report. Because here's the thing, you didn't go into ministry to spend all of your time navigating tech and navigating tech that always seems to change. That's not why you got into ministry. But yet, you're still responsible for making decisions when it comes to purchasing tech for your church. That's why for the last 3 years, we've collected over 6,000 surveys from church leaders to find out what tech is actually providing value in fueling your ministries and which tools and tech, are just kind of falling short. Our goal at Pushpay is to provide you with a clear picture on how tech can help achieve your mission. Now, having the data, that's one thing. Having this report, that's one thing. But knowing what to make of it, that's the trickier part. And with Pushpay software, we provide you a ton of church data as well as the insights on how to read it to make better decisions for your church. Interpreting the data. That's what this webinar is about. And that's why we've invited a very experienced and respected voice to weigh in, Mr. Clay Scroggins, who is a former pastor and author of How to Lead When You're Not in Charge, a message I think we can all resonate with. Clay, how are you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, really grateful to be here, Christian. Excited about this conversation. I love what you said at the beginning. You're so right. Most people did not get into ministry thinking they were going to be navigating what they're navigating, but really excited about seeing how this conversation can help be a resource for people. So thanks for inviting me.
Oh, thank you for being here. Yeah, it's there's a lot in the report, and I want to kind of set the foundation here of the report. So in October of 2023, we started interviewing and surveying 2,200 participants, and not just participants. These are church decision makers or influencers, so they are qualified to give us their opinion. And also, we're interviewing a variety of different demographics when we're talking about weekly attendance, small churches, large churches, various budgets and denominations. So this is a very wide subset. So we're getting, as accurate, as clear of a picture as we can. So if you would like the report today, we have it in the chat. We're going to put that in the chat very shortly. If you want to reference the report as we're talking, you can grab it in the chat. We're not going to be breaking down the entire report. We're going to be focusing on 3 core themes: the hybrid church mentality shift, the next generation of decision makers, and experimenting with cutting edge tech. And spoiler, it features AI. So let's focus on this the first core theme here. Leaders are abandoning the idea of in-person ministry only, or in-person only ministry. Leaders are abandoning this idea. So again, a note on the data. Like I said, we started gathering this in 2023, October of 2023. So last year's report was data from 2022. We all know what was still going on in 2022 and how churches, were figuring out how to handle it. So in last year's report, we had a larger group of churches have the desire to go in person only. Well, 2023 came and went. We interviewed those same churches, and now that the year over year, now only 10% want to do in-person only. So that has went down 21% from last year to this year. So now 90% of churches are using hybrid. And that's just a testament that churches realize as we're getting away from the pandemic, there's no going back. Hybrid is here to stay. So Clay, from your experience in developing people in a digital space, how can leaders embrace hybrid?
Yeah, I think the numbers, I love what you said earlier as well, Christian, about just interpreting the data. We can all interpret the data however we want, and I'm sure you can try to make the data say whatever it wants. But clearly, the reaction to the pandemic, there was a sincere desire to get back together in person, of course, right? Because we had so many churches had been predominantly experiencing ministry through online platforms, and everybody thought, hey, we got to get back together face to face. There's a verse that I love in 2 John that says, though I write to you now with pen and ink, I long to be with you face to face so that our joy may be complete. And what I interpret John saying there is that, yeah, face to face is most complete, but he's not neglecting the fact that I can't be with you right now. And so therefore I am writing to you with pen and ink. So he's leveraging, in his case, the pen and the ink was the technology of the day. He's leveraging that technology to be able to help people grow, to be able to connect with people, which I think the idea that there was a reaction to the pandemic and we got to get back together face to face in person, of course. And then now I think you're exactly right. I think what we're seeing is more of a probably a long-term solution to this, which is a hybrid type ministry environments. I think the most helpful or practical way that I've tried to think through this is I've talked with churches about their online strategy is really trying to start with the question, what do you want for people? Not what do you want from people, what do you want for people? And specifically, what do you want for people that are in person, and what do you want for people that are listening to your podcast or watching your services online or attending some kind of online campus? And I think if you'll start with that question, what you'll end up finding is that what you want for them is really the same thing. You want them to grow in their faith. You want them to experience healthy relationships. You want them to find how God has wired them and mobilize them to be able to use the gifts that God's given them, both locally and globally. And learning how to do that, figuring out how to do that, seeing technology as a way to allow us to do that, I think is really essential. But really starting with that question, I think, is a helpful way to begin the conversation as we think through this the new reality of in-person and online.
I love that question that you asked, like, what do we want for our people, not from? Because that's, yeah, of course we want to see the church packed with all the faces and stuff, just like the good old days. Of course we want that. It feels great. But is that for them or is it for us? And, I think the answer is, for us, when we could be spreading that message in a hybrid environment, live stream, small group, online, in person, whatever it looks like.
Well, can I interject there, Christian? Because I want to comment on one thing you said. I do think the reason why I like the question, what do you want for them, is because obviously different churches are going to answer that in different ways. And what you might decide you want for them is you want them to experience an in-person fellowship of the believers, an in-person koinonia, in-person community. And if that is the case, if that's what you and your church believes, I think what we're seeing a number of churches do when it comes to turning off the online stream on Sunday morning, you might decide to do that. It would allow you, it would certainly inform some of the decisions that you might make. But what I love about the strategy of asking the question is, instead of just responding to whatever the technology is or responding to whatever the trends are, I think it's just most important to decide, well, who are we as a church? Why are we here? And what do we really want for the people that God's gifted us to be able to lead and steward and have community with?
Yes. Yeah. Right. I love the trend topic of, like, what's trending. Oh, we should hop on it because it's a trend. Well, just because it's trending, okay, so it's gaining popularity, sure. Does it mean you have to do it because it's popular? Not necessarily. Should you do it because it would benefit the people of your church and how they engage and consume with your church? That's the better reason. Yeah.
Christian, Christmas morning this year are, the shoes On Clouds. You familiar with this brand of shoes? They're
On Clouds. No.
I feel like it's a very I don't know, it's a very 40-year-old suburban male shoe right now, which is probably a little older than you are, but
I'm not there yet. Maybe, yeah.
You'll be there. Our kids, the first time I owned a pair, our kids made fun of me for wearing them because they didn't think they just didn't like the way they looked. About a couple of years later, the trend has moved down to the teenagers, and one of our kids got a pair for Christmas. And as they're opening the box, which is a sick thing for me to do, but I said, you remember when I first wore those and you made fun of me and now you're so excited about getting these? And they said, this child whom shall remain nameless looks at me and said, yeah, but that was before I knew they were really popular. And I was like, oh my gosh, don't ever tell anyone that ever again, right? But you're right. Nobody wants to be responding to the trend just because they're trendy. We want to do the things that are right, that God's gifted us to do, that God has called us to do. So that's well said.
100%. Before we move on to our second core theme here, I want to let everyone know we will be doing a Q&A at the end of our discussion. So the chat, please put in your questions for Clay and I, and we will do our best to answer them. We would love to answer them and engage with all of you because, I'm having a great time talking to Clay, but I would have an even better time if this were a group discussion because we're all in this together. We're all figuring this out together. So yeah, if you have questions, put them in the chat. So let's jump into our second core theme. Insecurity plagues the next generation of decision makers. This is a big divide. I saw this and I was like, oh man, only 55% of the 2,200 church decision makers feel confident in making church decisions around tech, meaning the other 45% are not confident. This is concerning. It's understandable because tech is, ever changing. It's always, the trends as we've talked about and we'll talk about in theme number 3. But this insecurity, this fear, not being confident around making church decisions around tech specifically. Clay, you wrote in the foreword of the report, you wrote about reverse mentorship. Can you talk more on that and how reverse mentorship can help church decision makers gain that confidence when they are tasked with, making that decision around tech?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that I'm sure the Pushpay team has with a report like this is you want all pastors to read a report like this, but obviously with the title of it, The State of Tech, it's probably going to be a more tech-leaning group that reads it. I come from the other side. I went to Georgia Tech. My college degree is in industrial engineering. I wrote a dissertation in a doctoral program I did at Dallas Theological Seminary on helping people grow spiritually in online communities. And so I've always been fascinated with tech, but I relate very much so with the report, with the findings of this report. I don't feel very confident in making these decisions. And there's a number of reasons why. Kevin Kelly, who's a great voice to listen to, I think, when it comes to technology, wrote a book called, it's the 12 significant shifts that we need to pay attention to in technology. I think the book was called Irresistible. I'll look up the title in just a second. But one of the shifts that he talks about is the ever-changing nature of it and how impossible it is to keep up with technology, right? Because we've all had that experience where a software, a program, or maybe even an app that you're really used to using, even if it's your banking app, they, every month or so, they update their app. And we all know that feeling of you click on the app and then go, oh my goodness, where did the check button go? They've moved it, right? It's hard to even keep up as simply as that. The reason why it's so important to understand that and admit to that is because we're all, as Kevin Kelly says in this book, that we're all stuck in the noob state, right? That term noob from video game, right? The video game world of when you're new, you're a rookie, you're a noob, right? Mm-hmm. We're all perpetually stuck in this noob state. It is impossible to keep up with all of the trends, to keep up with all of technology. And so it's understandable that we all feel anxious or even completely unprepared because, one, we've got a lot of pastors who are in ministry for much different reasons that are now required to or responsible for paying attention to technology too. It's just impossible for anybody to keep up with. So of course, it creates a lot of anxiety on making decisions. I would say number three, a lot of these decisions are really expensive and we're stewarding other people's money in a sense because we're working for the local church. And so I think for those reasons and many more, there's a lot of anxiety. One of the things that I've found that's really helpful for me is this term that you mentioned, the idea of having reverse mentors. When we get to the third phase and we talk about AI and its the pervasiveness of its use in the church world, the only way I would have learned about it is because I'm 43 years old. I have a 30-year-old friend that has really become a mentor. That was not the way we started. We started just as I actually hired him to do some marketing work for me, but over time we became friends. And then over time, even more, I started realizing I have so much to learn from this person because he sees the world so much different than I see the world. I'm right on the brink of, I'm really, some charts would call me a Gen X, some charts would call me a millennial, but I can remember life without internet. I can remember life without a smartphone. He cannot. He doesn't remember life without the internet. He can hardly remember life without a smartphone. And so the way he sees the world, his fearlessness with technology, his maybe some of the reluctance that I might feel on adopting new technology, he just doesn't have the same reluctance. I mean, he reminds me of the way my wife and I have 5 kids. Whenever our kids, when they were younger than they should have been, they eventually were holding an iPad, and their willingness to navigate the iPad, they're indigenous. They grew up with, they understand that, maybe not understand it. They're not afraid of it. They're willing to adapt and adopt a lot more quickly than I might be. And so just having someone from someone in a younger generation who can be that reverse mentor, I think is just tremendous. And so that's really, I would say it's an encouragement and a call really for pastors. But I would also say for a lot of you that maybe you're in the tech space or maybe you're responsible for technology at your local church, really trying to see yourself as that, trying to see yourself as a reverse mentor for someone to help translate, to help ease someone's concern around some of these decisions that are fraught with complexity, I think is a really helpful it's a really helpful role for so many of you that you probably are already in. But what I would hope is that maybe you would even stand in it with even more confidence or sit in it with more confidence than maybe you ever have before, because we certainly need you in the church.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always the conversation that I hear is like, oh, how do we involve the next generation? How do we get them involved in helping with the church? You ask them. It sounds like, oh, well, no, duh. You ask them, and this is the type of result that you're going to get, that reverse mentorship. And so tying in the last theme with this theme, with embracing hybrid, embracing the technology, all that. And we talked about like, well, why are you doing it? Is it to be trendy, or is it to serve for your congregation? And, so that being the latter, serving for your congregation, doing things for your congregation, that's the why. The technology is the what. The third question you have to answer is, how are you going to do it? That reverse mentorship is the how to the technology, the what, to the serving your congregation, the why. And that's what it all stems. It all comes together. Everything works together. So that, yeah, reverse mentorship certainly resonates with me.
I wonder too, Christian, if there is some, some anxiety around some of the decisions that we make because we don't have enough leadership that is giving here is the idea of start with the end in mind, right? We all make such better decisions when we know where we're headed. And in this space, no one knows where we're headed. No, I mean, it's so difficult to paint, well, what's the picture of the future, right? Because it's so new for all of us. And so perhaps maybe that's some of the challenge, back to the question of the way you just framed that, the starting with the why, right? What do you want for your people and why are you doing what you're doing? And then the what being the technology itself. Some of the challenges we don't know. We haven't answered question number one. We don't know exactly what we want for people. I think we would all agree we don't want people to exist in a fully online world. None of us do, and we would all agree that's not the healthiest for us, right? But at the same time, there's almost zero reluctance to encouraging people to give online. And so we're great with people experiencing generosity online, leveraging platforms like Pushpay to be able to do that. But how do people grow? What do we want for them? What is the end game in all of this? We just don't know. And so I think some of the anxiety around, or maybe some of the indecision or the complexity of the decision, is in the fact that we haven't answered the first question, because that certainly would answer it would inform the second question of, okay, well then what do we do? I think about the working from home situation that we have these days, right? That I work with so many organizations that are still trying to figure out, do we make everybody come back to the office, or do we land on a hybrid space, right? And most people have landed on we were once fully work from home, or we were once fully in the office, then we swung fully work from home, and now we're kind of in a hybrid, maybe Tuesday or Thursday, we'd like for you to be in the office. It's similar, I think, to where church is landing to, hey, in general, we want you here in person because we believe there's something powerful. It's where our joy can be complete, as the Apostle John said. But we also are recognizing that there are times where not having to fight your commute, getting particular kinds of work done is just better when we work from home. The head down, more detailed, administrative, tenacity kind of work is sometimes better when we're working from home. And I would say the same thing is true in ministry. There's certain ministry that is just better in person, and there's certain ministry that it is possible to do online. It is certainly possible, and it is pretty effective to consume a sermon online, right? We all know that. But we also recognize engaging in a worshipful experience through music is a little bit more challenging online. And so trying to figure out, when are we going to use technology and when are we not, based on where we're trying to go. I really think that strategic way of looking at this is a big part of the answer to this.
Well, and what happens when someone just needs that message on a Tuesday?
That's exactly
Thursday?
right.
Oh, hold that thought. Wait till
Sunday. That's right. At this particular address, we can help you.
Right. If you want the answer, come to this physical address on Sunday at 9 a.m. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. We all know that's we've moved past that, I think.
Yeah.
I would hope. Maybe we haven't.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason we're even having this conversation.
Agreed. What's your guess though, Christian? Why is there so much anxiety around making decisions around tech purchases?
I'm gonna go a little more on the logistical financial route. Return on investment. Like, I look at my church, and we're a small town church from Pennsylvania, and we do hybrid, set up a streaming system during the pandemic, and it's okay. It could be improved. There are a lot of things that we could do. And, I'm working with my pastor right now to evolve that. And he's fully on board. However, when it comes to investing in new tech, that usually comes with a price tag. And that's intimidating for a church council or elder board, or any governing board of a church to go, oh yes, let us spend X amount of dollars on this piece of tech. It's hard for everyone to buy in to why do we need this tech? What is it going to do? How is it going to achieve our mission? And is it worth the money? Because what if, you only have limited cash flow coming in and you were to waste it? And, done right, it is not a waste. But the concern is like, what if this is wasted and we just spent thousands of dollars and don't see any return? That's scary for a governing board of a church.
That's well said. Again, I feel like I'm harping on this so much, but it does. Not every church needs to or should go all in on technology particularly when it comes to streaming online or providing online solutions for people to grow in their faith. And I think that's it's a question worth considering for your own church is how deep do we want to go into this? And it should be based on, what do we want for people? And what kind of ministry do we want to have? What kind of ministry do we feel like God has called us to have? Because there's plenty of local churches that they might say, you know what? In the same way, there's plenty of colleges that have not gone all in on online education. There's plenty of colleges that have said, hey, we're going to leave online education to Liberty. We're going to be the best 1,000-person on-site, in-person ministry experience or education experience that you can get. That's totally fine to make that decision, but that decision will inform how we use technology and hopefully not the other way around. Because you're right, it is expensive and it takes resources. It doesn't just need to be a sidecar. I think that's one of the frustrations that I felt oftentimes in ministry is it felt like, oh, yeah, we got that over here on the side. Like I'm thinking the motorcycle with the little sidecar.
Right.
The technology was the sidecar. I'm sure there's loads of people on this webinar that are going like, yeah, that's the way our church sees it. Right. I was really more passionate. I worked at a pretty large church that was able to afford technology and technological upgrades. And I was so adamant that we needed a CIO or a CTO sitting at the board, sitting at the decision-making table. And that was unusual in a church context. You wouldn't think that. You wouldn't think you'd have the technology person. But I just knew, no, where this is going, you got to have the tech person sitting there helping to make these decisions because we can't see the things that this person can see because that's just not. I went to Dallas Theological Seminary. Like I don't have I have a degree in theology. I don't have a degree in technology. Right. Just like every other person around the table.
Exactly. No one got into ministry to geek out on tech. So
yeah, most people certainly didn't.
I want to move on to our third theme here, which is interesting and
which will allow us to geek out on tech.
Yeah, right. Honestly. And this is interesting because it may sound conflicting at first, and I'm going to be very intentional with my wording here, because on this slide on theme 2, we see that church leaders are insecure, they're not confident. Well, the third theme that we've found from the report, these are survey questions from church leaders. Churches are eager to experiment with cutting edge tech. The key word here is experiment. Doesn't mean they're going to adopt it. Doesn't mean, they're curious, right? And the biggest thing that we were curious about last year was metaverse. This year, it's AI. So I want to direct everyone's attention, the top half of the screen here, the top charts. Figure 3.3 says, the 2023 blue bar, that 8%, that's how many churches were using metaverse in 2023/2022. The 2024 blue bar is how many churches are using metaverse right now. Well, that shrunk to 5%. And year over year, that's a 32% decrease. The dotted blue bar in 2024, that says 25%, that is how many churches thought that they would be using metaverse more in 2024. Well, now it's this year, we look at AI as the hot cutting edge tech. and 11% of churches are using it right now, while 33% of churches expect to use AI next year. I don't know about all of you, but those two charts look very, very similar. So we saw the decline in metaverse. What will AI bring next year? Time will tell. Clay, why do you think metaverse declined?
Well, I wonder how much of I don't know where Facebook or where Meta is right now, but even the buzz you hear around it, I mean, they had changed their name. They all, all the reports coming out were saying that they were spending so much more, investing so much more into Meta and that into the metaverse. And that just feels like that has changed. I mean, even the new Apple Pro Vision, you and I spoke about this last week, but I went and did a 30-minute demo at the Apple store just to be able to experience it, because I'm not going to be able to experience it by paying for it. That's for sure, because it's so dang expensive. But
same here. Yep.
Even after the 30-minute experiment, I just thought, okay, I could see how this would really enhance a work environment, but I don't know, is this going to be like the iPad, where there was a day where people thought, an iPad? I don't need an iPad. I have an iPhone. I have a computer. What are you talking about? And then all of a sudden, 10 years later, most people have some kind of tablet in their home. And so you do wonder, is this going to be something where eventually we're all going to be working in the metaverse, or are we not? I just think the jury's still out. When it comes to AI, it feels a little different. There's quite a cost associated with the metaverse, and even having, whether it's Oculus or Apple Provision, whatever it may be. But the cost for leveraging AI for your church, for your ministry, is just so much less significant. You don't even, I mean, you can do the $20 a month for Chat GPT for the upgraded version, but you don't even really have to be able to gain some of the benefit from it. I was just this morning, I'm preaching a sermon on Sunday at a church. They're going through Genesis. I think their passage they gave me was Genesis 12 on the Tower of Babel. And I thought, okay, that will be interesting. Let me see what I can think about or come up with prayerfully through that passage. But then I'm also going, it's also Palm Sunday. It's the beginning of Holy Week. Feels like we should talk about Jesus entering Jerusalem coming in on top of these palms that people are laying down with the crowd screaming Hosanna. Feels like we should also talk about that. And Chat GPT this morning was tremendously helpful in helping me synthesize Genesis 12 and John 12 into a cohesive sermon. Now, of course, I'm not just going to preach the sermon that it spit out to me, but it was incredibly helpful in helping me formulate and form it. I just think those kind of use cases are going to be more and more common. I think in the next couple of years, I think leveraging whatever GPT is your fancy, tickles your fancy. I feel like leveraging it in the next couple of years is going to be as common as using Google. So my guess is we won't see the rate of decline on people that thought they were going to use it that then aren't. I think, in fact, it's going to be the other way. I think we're going to see more and more people leveraging it, finding it as a really helpful intern for the work that they're doing in ministry.
I fully agree. And right, with the metaverse, and the metaverse is interesting because, like, Life Church is, they have a metaverse,
a campus
ecosystem. Yeah, right, a campus. And like they integrate with Resi, and we've spoken to Life Church about the integration, and we saw it firsthand. And like it's like, whoa. There's with the metaverse, there's two different parts to the upfront, lift, the cost, the effort put in. You have the church's end, where they have to create what that campus looks like physically design the VR architecture and integrate the stream and the videos, have an online pastor or online greeters, all with headsets, all with their avatar. Like, that's so much on the church's end. And then for any of that to even be seen, the attender the congregation member has to have an Oculus or a headset or whatever just to participate. So like that's a lot of moving parts. That's a lot of friction. With AI, like you said, it's only the church has to figure out how to use it and leverage it so that the congregation can just absorb the message. How to bridge between Genesis and Palm Sunday. Like the congregation doesn't have to do anything. They just have to listen to you preach and like, oh, this is great. So yeah, I definitely see AI being like Google, as you said.
I think there's a friend of mine and I run a workshop that we do for pastors called sermonprep.ai. And we've learned a lot just trying to help pastors, trying to remove some of the stigma, some of the fear. Or the first question we ask at our workshop is, if your congregation knew you were at this workshop, how would they feel? Would they be excited? Would they be scared? Would they think you're messing with the devil? Would they have no idea, right? And we get people from all over the spectrum. But what always happens is we always see light bulbs come on for people on how they're going to use this in ways that we never could have intended. We have a church planner who attended one of our first workshops, a church planter in Boston, who says, hey, I now use this. I upload my sermon manuscript on Thursday, and in about an hour's worth of work leveraging this particular GPT, it gives me a full marketing plan for how we're going to leverage this sermon. It would take us a 20-hour-a-week employee to do this, and what it takes us an hour to do. We had a pastor who called us the day after and said, I haven't gotten a chance to leverage this for sermon prep yet, but I had a really difficult conversation with a volunteer today. I was going to have to lay this volunteer off because of some decisions that he had made. And I was nervous about the conversation. I was a little unsure how I was going to go. And I leveraged Chat GPT just to help me think through, how do I put myself in his shoes? How do I care for him well? What do I need to think about as I approach this conversation? And he said it went so much better than I thought it would have gone, but it was because I was able to prepare in a way, which I thought, what a tremendous, I mean, we would have never said, hey, here's one of the ways you could use this 2-hour workshop is to, next time you have to lay off a volunteer, leverage chat. Right. We weren't thinking that. I just think we're all going to find so many creative ways to be able to care for people well, to be able to prepare more efficiently so that we can pastor more effectively is really what we're hoping to see people do. But again, that's just through one simple 2-hour workshop. There's so many other ways that we're going to see people leverage this.
If anyone is curious, I know I was, what GPT stands for, because everyone just throws around, oh yeah, Chat GPT, what is it? And you don't actually need to, it's not that important, but little fun fact, generative pre-trained transformer. That's a little techie, even for my taste, and I'm a tech guy. But that's what a GPT is. And yeah, now, are you only working in the free version, or are you paying for a custom GPT?
I pay the $20 a month for the 4 point whatever version.
Yeah,
but we've also
Plus. Yep.
I've taken a lot of the leadership content that I've written over the years, and I trained a custom GPT called How to Lead GPT that is for people who are not in charge, is for people who find themselves in the middle of an organization trying to figure out, how do I get this other department to, rein in their spending? Or even the question that Bruce asked, this is a question that would be that would fit really well with the GPT, the How to Lead GPT that our team trained, is how do you rein in tech guys? If they don't work for you, it's a lot more if they work for you, it's a little different conversation. I'm assuming Bruce, in this case, can I go ahead and speak to this question, Christian? Would that be okay?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Bruce said, in case you're not tracking with the chat, Bruce said, what about reining in us tech guys? We don't see the big picture. Does our church really need studio quality audio and video for a church service? Bruce, first of all, I love the question that you are asking it as a tech guy. What about reining it in myself? When I first read your question, I was thinking you were saying, I'm not a tech guy. How do I rein in the tech guys? Right. I don't want to keep harping on this, but somebody said it earlier. I thought this comment by Josh was terrific. This is a great way to say what I think we were talking about earlier is the more church online can work in congruence with the mission of the church, the more successful it will be. So again, recognizing that your online mission should, I think, works best when it is in congruence with the mission of your church. If the mission of your church is for people to just consume content so that God might use it to help them grow, then you're going to invest more, right? But if the mission of your church is to mobilize people to get into circles or to get into groups or to join a discipleship class or to go serve the community or to go on a mission trip to another part of the world, it's going to dictate the technology that you're going to use. So Bruce, I would encourage you in that to say, hey, really try to keep it mission focused. Is this going to enhance the mission of our church? Now, what's difficult is quality in general is great, right? There's a term we used to use all the time at the church that I served with, that there are problems to solve and then there are tensions to manage. And when it comes to quality and excellence, it is not a problem to solve because there can always be a more enhanced quality or a greater excellence. The question is, you've got to hold stewardship in tension with excellence, right? Because you want to be a good steward and you also want it to be excellent. So what is the way that our leadership is thinking about technology? Do I understand how they feel, what they think? And do I understand the parameters in which they've given me to operate? Because they might want we're fine with I know there was a time where Life Church would say, we want our video team to think of themselves like the 5 o'clock news, not like the crew of a motion picture, which is so helpful because it gives them parameters. We're thinking, get stuff out fast, which means lower quality, but higher amount of content that's getting out there. Again, I think that answer to your question, Bruce, a lot of it resides with the leadership of your church. But the more you can understand the mission, the more you can be bought in on the vision, the more you can understand the parameters, the better you'll be at operating within those boundaries.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually, I would say I was gonna piggyback, but you also touched on my point a little bit from the tech perspective, because I'm a tech guy, and we're gonna jump to the Q&A section here. We have a few more questions coming up, but yeah, to piggyback with Bruce's question, video and audio quality is important up until a point. So, do you need, that cinematography level, studio quality, everything is absolutely perfect? No, you don't. However, if you're doing a live stream and your wireless mics keep cutting out and you can't fully hear the message, and it's like, oh, I don't know what's going on, like, that's very irritating for the consumer, for the person watching online, because people watch videos every single day on YouTube and social media and everything, TV. Like, there is a standard of quality, and if you're below that, then that
they're going to turn it off.
Some people off. Right. Exactly. Right. And then, mission failed. So whatever that line of, like, is the audio nice and crisp? Are the video, are all the video shots, do they look normal, or are they super grainy? If they're grainy, no good. But if they look presentable, above that minimum, bar of acceptance from the consumer, then that's what you need to aim for, not the top end studio quality. And naturally, if your production budget grows, then yeah, of course, make it a better experience. No one's going to boo you for a better experience, but just make sure you bare minimum you pass that clear audio, clear picture threshold, I would say.
That's a great way to put that. And I'll give you a real life on an example that we're seeing right now. There's a sports talk show called the Pat McAfee Show that is now on, they're live on ESPN every day from like, noon to 2 or something. They're live on YouTube every day from noon to 3, maybe. And I've seen Pat McAfee do this where he's decided, hey, I could get any guest in the world that has a phone in front of them if they're willing to just FaceTime with us. If I'm demanding that this guest come into our studio to be interviewed, it's going to limit who we could get and when we could get them. And he's just decided we'll take some failures. We'll take some, The Rock was driving down the road or was, pulled over on the side of the road to FaceTime with us and he had a bad signal and we had to say, we'll call you later. I'll take that every now and then over not having to wait 6 months to get The Rock in our studio. Because of how many people and so they do it all the time. I think I think what they've experienced is what you're saying is they've realized there's a bare minimum with the audio and the video that we got to hit that. But as long as we hit that, it's really about the content. It's about what people are saying and about what the conversation is. And if we can focus on that and get it good enough, hit the low bar, then we can really, it's going to multiply the amount that we can do. And I think the same thing would be true for churches. I would rather have, you just did a big missions event and you've got a church in Cuba that was feeling the benefit of the generosity of your church. I would rather that pastor on a, iPhone quality video that we could play this Sunday because the event happened last week than a $10,000 fully produced. We went to Cuba and shot this and it's going to take us a couple of months, right? I would rather get it the next week.
Right. Yeah. The expediency of, conveying that experience. Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely a point of diminishing returns, especially when it comes to slowing down on time.
This question by Josh, he said, have you seen instances where people can engage online at a higher level by jumping onto a Zoom call and connecting with an online pastor?
Like a round table almost?
Or are they saying, I'll tell you what I'm seeing, what seems to be working really, really well for people is I see so many churches saying, hey, let us know how we can pray for you. And that simple question, which isn't that one of the most basic things that we're to do as churches, is to pray for each other. But the simple raising of the hand and going, hey, I'll tell you what's going on in my life if you are offering to pray for me. So back to your question, Josh, I would say taking that a step further and say, here's the link. 30 minutes after, we're going to offer an opportunity to break out into breakout groups and pray for you. I have not seen many churches do that. When I was at North Point, we did do your follow-up question, use Zoom as a platform to discuss the sermon following the service. Yes. I think if your church believes that life change happens best in small groups and you're not leveraging ways for people to get into groups digitally, I think you're missing a great opportunity. Obviously, it would be better if the group were face-to-face, but we all sit at work and have Zoom meetings all week long, and we're so grateful that we didn't have to get in the fact that, Christian, you and I are able to do this. I'm in Atlanta, you're in Denver, and the technology is working great. Would it be better if you and I were in the same room? Of course it would be, but it's good enough, and it allows us to be able to do something that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do. So yes, I think leveraging that for after the sermon is a great thing to do.
We're going to answer one more question because we are soon coming up at the hour. But before we get to that last question, here's the deal. Knowing this data around church tech is one thing. And Clay and I really enjoyed all of you tuning in to our conversation. But this whole conversation is meaningless if you're not applying the knowledge to your own church. And that's why we made the Church Tech Check, which is a free, quick, and easy tool to evaluate your church's technology to see if it's maximizing your ministry. You're doing the work for your people. So it's quick and easy. Scan the QR code, or the link is in the chat if you want to get the Church Tech Check It's a great tool that we're really proud of, and I think you're going to get a lot of great use out of it. So I'm going to ask the last question I saw that I wanted to
I think we have two
ask
more.
for Amanda.
Christian.
Is it? Oh, yes. Yeah, from Chip. If we can, I don't know.
And
You
then
think we can answer him in 10 minutes? We got 10 minutes, Clay.
I think so. The great news is I have a phone call with Chip in 10 minutes. And so if we don't get to it, we can
you can follow up with him. Well, let's tackle Amanda's question first. What are ways you'd like to see churches implement tech in an innovative way?
Let me tell you what I would do with that question, Amanda, is I would ask the people in your church that question. I have found that pastors sitting around talking about ways they would like to see technology being used is so short-sighted. But there are people in your church, there are congregants, there are parishioners who they work in technology all the time. And if you would unleash them to dream about ways in which they've seen technology enhance what they're doing at work, enhance education, and enhance business, and set them loose to be able to think about ways that they could leverage technology to enhance what God's doing in the world, I think you'll find an even better answer than whatever Christian and I would brainstorm.
I definitely agree with that. And I know we talked about this earlier,
I'm not avoiding
Clay.
the question either. I'm happy to give my email. And if you really want to know what I think about it, my email is clay.scroggins@gmail.com. You're welcome to email me, and I'll give you, here's 10 things that I think people ought to be doing, the churches ought to be doing.
Right, because these are like anything that you and I can say, Clay, those are blanket statements. It might not directly apply to, everyone's church. But the first thing that jumps out in my head is, how can you offer the message, the weekly message, or during the week, like not on a Sunday or a Saturday, whenever you do your services, like on a Tuesday, for the people that need that word, who need something. Like, how can you reach them any day of the week? It's more than just Sunday. How can you reach them, and how can you give them what they need on a Thursday or a Wednesday or whenever?
Well, here's Christian, sorry to interrupt you. I've got
please.
I mean, this is like live in my life right now. I preach at churches most Sundays. My family, we go to a church here in Atlanta. Tonight, my wife and I will go to small group where the whole structure of the group is discussing the sermon from Sunday. I have listened to the sermon this week, even though I wasn't there, and it allows me to stay in the flow of the community. That's obviously just one use case, but I think at a very basic level, providing the sermon for people so that they can stay connected to your church, whether it's for shut-ins, people that are sick, people that have young kids, people that just can't for whatever be there, people that have to work on Sundays. I think that's tremendous.
Well, right. Yeah, you're limiting by not having that stream, or by not having those additional resources, you're limiting your exposure. You're limiting the reach that you can have to touch, the lives of your congregation and people who also aren't in your congregation yet. Yeah, that's my blanket statement. Yeah, definitely agree. Ask your church, Amanda, ask your congregation members what they want to see, and then see, I think, how you can do it.
The most exciting stuff is some of the geo tracking, some of the ways that the idea of stores, retails, thinking about omni-channel. You walk into a Best Buy and all of a sudden your Best Buy app sends you a notification and is linked up with your shopping experience there. I think that concept is what it's going to be exciting over the next 10 years to see churches do that without invading people's privacy, but recognizing you walked into our church and we also noticed that you just bought a pack and play at Target. Here's a course that we have on what to do when you're a brand new parent, right? I think that some of those use cases are way more advanced, but it's the exciting stuff that I think in 10 years, churches are going to figure out how to do.
All right. I think we're gonna wrap up the webinar, the discussion. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everyone attending, everyone who participated. Really hope that the State of Church Tech report, it's very dense. It's got a lot of data. I hope that this conversation helped kind of break it down into more actionable steps, or at least, you understand what's going on and like why we're talking about it, why we're talking about it. And speaking of actionable steps, the church tech check, it's a mouthful. The church tech check is that next step that anyone can take to see if their church is up to date on tech, if their tech is serving their ministry. It's a good one to fill out and check out. So thank you everyone for attending. Clay, thank you for all of your contributions and insight. Oh my gosh, this conversation was wonderful.
My pleasure. Really grateful to get to be a part of it, Christian. And though thank you was on a slide, we meant it, even though we were prompted by the slide. It also came from the heart.
Well said, my friend. Well, thank you everyone for attending. I hope you have a great rest of your day, great week. Soon to be a happy Easter. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.